on this story. We're joined by Ian Lesser in Brussels. He's the Vice President of the Foreign Policy at the German Marshall Fund of the United States. Ian, many thanks for joining us. Now, it does seem that both sides seem firmly entrenched in their positions. Turkey wants an apology, but the Netherlands is unlikely to provide one. How do you see this playing out?
Well, unfortunately, this situation is unfolding against a backdrop of very strong nationalist feeling on both sides. Actually, frankly, all over Europe at the moment, of course, also in Turkey, where there's a referendum unfolding, and in the Netherlands, but also in Germany and other places where there are elections coming up. And so no one wants to look weak on this. So that's sort of the tactics of the problem. In the background, of course, there's a very bad existing relationship between Turkey and the European Union over the accession process and over many other things, which does not help.
Turkey and the Netherlands, as you say, both talking tough, but the Netherlands to Turkey is a huge trading partner. It can't really afford to completely alienate them, surely.
Well, I mean, and the truth is that this has become a Turkey-EU issue as a whole. So the question that you ask about the economic stakes and the interdependence of both sides is absolutely correct, but it's even bigger than just the bilateral relationship between the Netherlands and Turkey. There's an awful lot at stake. There's an awful lot to be jeopardized, even the kind of tourism, business travel, all sorts of economic interactions that go on where both countries have a stake in seeing normalcy.
Ian, do you get a sense that European countries are joining a sort of bandwagon against Turkey on this? And do you think that reaction is warranted?
Well, you know, there is a tendency to do this in the European Union. I mean, there are these principles of solidarity. And, you know, as I say, had the relationship between Turkey and the EU as a whole been positive going into this crisis, the reaction might be somewhat different. But of course, there's been a very critical attitude in Europe, all over Europe, in fact, towards Ankara in recent years and certainly in recent months over media freedom, over many other issues, which is not making this any easier. So European governments are primed to be critical, and this crisis falls right in the middle of that atmosphere.
How much do you think this is all playing into right-wing groups in the Netherlands and all across Europe?
Well, one might think that it would, but in fact, I think governments in power, and you can see this already with the Prime Minister in the Netherlands, who actually seems to be coming out of this better than his right-wing opponent. You know, as I say, it might in theory play into the hands of right-wing populists. It's certainly in line with their views. On the other hand, it's governments in power who get to make the decisions, and there's where people will make a judgment. And apparently it is not doing any great things for Geert Wilders, for example.
What about Turkey? Do you see Turkey's president benefiting from all this?
Well, you know, I think clearly nationalism, especially given the context of the moment in Turkey, is a very powerful force. And with this referendum coming up, there is a lot of attention to these issues, not just by the government, but also by its opposition, that is essentially saying the same thing. So, you know, I would say that on the whole, this kind of nationalist crisis strengthens the hand of the president.
Indeed. Okay, Ian, appreciate you joining us today. Ian Lesser, Vice President of Foreign Policy at the German Marshall Fund of the United States.